Even after his ex-girlfriend's body was found macheted in the jungle, after he sat across from her dying sister during her last moments on Earth, even with all the evidence pointing right back at him, Brian Brimmager still denied having anything to do with Yvonne Baldelli's murder. But that was about to become much harder to do.
Over a year after it had originally been tested and they had found no blood, we were examining the machete in preparation for trial. And we found that the handle could be removed. They removed the handle and found that there was blood under the handle, the same DNA as Yvonne Baldelli.
When confronted with that news, Brian Brimmager sat down with his lawyers and finally started talking.
We were ready to go to trial, and he pled guilty approximately 1 month before trial.
It started just as Brian said it had so many years before.
Around the time of her death, that the victim had logged on to his account and had found out that Mr. Brimmager had another relationship with Kristen Werkhoven, had a child.
Brian's defense claims that a violent, day-long fight ensued, culminating in Yvonne pulling a knife. Brian fought back, beating Yvonne before getting hold of the knife and using it to fatally stab her in the back. Then things really got gruesome.
He said that after he had stabbed her in the back, he knew that he needed to move her and bury her in the jungle. And in order to do that, he needed to get her to be small enough to fit in a backpack.
And so, in his own words, Brian Brimmager dragged his girlfriend into the bathroom and used his machete to dismember her body. Then, to make it look like she really did just run off with all her things, he killed her dog.
Were the dog's remains ever found?
No, they were not.
But what really started that final fight? Was there a deeper motive? Evidence found on Yvonne's computer begged the question.
She had drafted a letter entitled Werkhoven, the name of Kristen Werkhoven. We believe that she intended to send that letter and intended to make sure that Brian's plans to return and live with Kristen and raise his daughter weren't going to happen. And he wasn't going to let her talk. So he killed her.
The U.S. Attorney's Office does believe the motive is that he wanted to silence her.
I don't think that holds water.
You don't?
I don't. I think this was a fight that escalated, and then he had to figure out what to do. I think it was a huge mistake. He found himself in that moment in Panama, not knowing what to do, and having to make terrible decisions.
But if it really was all just a heat-of-the-moment situation, what about Brian's behavior after he got off the island?
Probably the most heinous and cruel acts he committed were what he put that family through in making them believe that Yvonne was still alive, giving them false hope she was still alive.
And then there was that Facebook comment about using his machete to, quote, dismember one stripper.
Is there any response for that?
What he did was in terrible taste. But it wasn't to denigrate her memory or because he's cold-blooded. It was to make everybody look away from him. It was a deflection. Brian, I think, remains remorseful, remains repentant.
Yvonne's parents have strong opinions about what Brian can do with his remorse.
There's no way I believe that he's sorry.
In the end, Brian was sentenced to 26 years in federal prison, which means no chance of parole.
May 25th was the sentencing. May 28th, we were able to take Yvonne back to San Diego, close to where her home was, and give her a send-off that was dignified. That was something worthy of Yvonne.
Justice has been served for Yvonne's killer. But what about the woman who, even to this day, continues to stand by his side?
The beginning of when some people start making comments about his wife, my husband said, you know, she's a victim like Yvonne was a victim. Let's be patient. But now, after she knows what Yvonne suffered, he broke her nose, broke her jaw, broke her teeth, stabbed her over and over and over again, and chopped her up in little pieces and threw her in a swamp. And she's supporting the man that destroyed Yvonne. I'm sorry, I don't have any understanding for her.
And we wanted to help Yvonne's parents find that understanding. So we sent our own Jason Matera to Kristen's home to try and get some answers.
Let's see what Kristen has to say for herself. Does she still support her husband after what he pleaded guilty to? Someone's coming. Jason Matera with Crime Watch Daily. Is Kristen here? Can you open the door? Is Kristen your daughter? Is there a Kristen that lives here? Jason Matera with Crime Watch Daily. We're doing a story about Kristen's husband's conviction, Brian. She doesn't live here. Where does she live? Do you know her, miss?
The woman behind the door refuses to open up, but we had to try one more time to get Kristen's side of the story.
Just had a question on whether Kristen still stands by Brian or not. Brian's attorney says that she still supports him. Odd, considering what he's convicted of.
After several more minutes of knocking, we're forced to leave without the answers we came for. Repeated calls to Kristen Werkhoven by our producers have also gone unanswered. So for now, this is where we're left. 2 daughters lost, a family fractured, but not broken.
We pray and we look forward to one day seeing them again, to hug them again and tell them how much we love them and how much we miss them. And that's our hope.
26 years hardly seems like enough time for a guy like this. Now we want to hear from you guys. If your husband was accused of a horrible crime like this, would you stay by his side like Grimmager's wife is doing? Sound off right now on our Facebook page.